How are you feeling about these cases heading before the court today?
Well, of course, I think that it is kind of hard. You know, Becky just wants to participate in sports. She is a high school girl. This case started when she was 11. So we talk about men and women, but we're talking about kids. We're talking about kids' sports. And right now, we're at the Supreme Court because her right to participate in those sports is being threatened with being taken away. So, well, of course, it's always, exciting when there's an opportunity to enshrine rights. It's also, there's a lot at stake for this one girl who's at the heart of this case.
And it's not just West Virginia, right? There's a lot at stake, depending on how they rule, really for the rest of the country.
Well, I think that there's two ways that you can view it. On the one hand, yes, this is an important case, and I think it's going to give a lot of insight into how the court is going to handle these issues in the future. But on the other hand, this case really is just about Becky. It's not about trans students' right to participate broadly in West Virginia, or most certainly not in other states. It's about whether, in Becky's particular situation, is it fair and is it constitutional? And Becky's situation is kind of unique. You know, she does not have this athletic advantage that they say forms the basis of the law and justifies it. And so the question then is, should this be allowed to happen if Becky is being treated unfairly? And our answer is no.
Give us a brief overview of who Becky is.
Yeah, so Becky Pepper-Jackson is a West Virginia student. Like I said, this case started when she was 11, when she wanted to do track and field in middle school. She's now a sophomore in high school, and she still does track and field, though her primary sport is now shot put, whereas she started out as a runner. And she just, I don't know if you all have gotten any quotes from her or seen any of the news coverage where she talks about the role that sports has played in her school experience and her life. But it has been a place where she's been able to make friends and feel community and, feel really supported. And so the idea that she would lose that opportunity is hard to imagine when you see this one particular girl who it was causing no harm for her to participate, and now the state is going to such lengths to try and, support and defend this law.
I get asked a lot, what am I doing now? I'm no longer coaching. I do work for Turner Sports. I do work for CBS. I'm calling college basketball. But I've got a little bit more time than a lot of my coaches, including my son right now, and your coach in Florida, Todd Golden, who are at work right now, trying to do the best they can on the court. At the same time, off the court, college athletics is a complete mess. We have not found a way to revenue share and to have some sort of shared governance whereby the student athletes can benefit from what we've got going on right now. But right now, there are no rules. There are no guidelines. The courts have said that the NCAA is a huge antitrust violator, and they're probably right. I'm just here trying to get Congress and the Senate to understand this is something we need to work on, and it needs to be fixed.
What do you make of this issue of transgender athletes and their ability to participate in women's and girls' sports?
Well, I had the honor and privilege of coaching right side by side with the great Pat Summitt. Pat Summitt could have coached an NBA team. She could have coached the men's team. She never felt like she needed to validate what she was doing. But I believe that if Pat was still alive, she would be here protecting her girls, protecting those young women that chose to play for her. I'm a father. I'm a grandfather. I don't want my granddaughters dressing in a locker room with boys. I don't want them competing against boys. It's just not fair. This is a no-brainer issue. I can't believe it's all there up at the Supreme Court. But as long as I was in Washington, D.C., I want to stand with women. I want to stand with the girls. I need the boys out of my girls' locker room.
What do you make of how the NCAA has handled this issue?
I don't know where the NCAA is on the issue, so I really can't comment. I think they've got bigger problems.
Fair enough. Anything else you want to add?
I just want to say this. Women's collegiate athletics has done an unbelievable job shaping our country. It brought more women to college campuses. I've been in the weight room with them. I've been in the training room with them. I've been on the practice court. I know how to train. And I know that even though there's Title IX, they're not always supported as well as they should be. I'm here today to support women and to save women's sports.
Well, as a transgender woman myself, it was actually the younger generation that finally encouraged me to come out and to be my authentic self. So now with their rights, especially under attack, I feel it's really important to come out and fight for them. So.
Did you participate in any sports or anything growing up?
I did. I was a wrestler. I did some football and things like that. So I think sports is very important, especially for kids growing up. I don't know.
No, so did you, and if you, I don't know how much you want to share, but did you transition older in life or younger in life?
So I actually transitioned when I was about 35. I knew by the time I was about 5 that I was transgender, but I just lived in fear my whole life. There were so many things holding me back, and like I said, I dealt with a lot of mental health issues stemming from not coming out and being my authentic self. So growing up and hitting the age of about 35, seeing the younger generations being accepting of their peers and supportive, it really encouraged me, because if they could do it and they could come out and be brave, it gave me the courage to do it as well.
Why were athletics important to you growing up and being a part of those sports programs?
Well, especially for me being transgender and not being able to live as myself, it was really hard for me to make friends and, find my group that I really meshed with. So being in sports is a way for people to come together and to learn teamwork and all the different skills that you need to be successful in life.
Thank you so much. What brought you out here today? Why is this such an important issue to make this trip?
So it's kind of a two-pronged issue. The sports issue is sort of something that I kind of view as being just on the surface level of what these cases are really about. Obviously, participating in athletics is important for young people, especially like you learn a lot of social skills, you learn how to participate as a member of a team, you learn how to cope with the possibility of you lose a game, maybe you have a bad season, and you learn how to kind of self-assess and pick yourself up again and kind of just good coping skills and things of that sort. So I think it's important for people to be able to feel included in that kind of activity, and I also feel that the Supreme Court just doesn't need to be hearing a case like this. There's athletic commissions that exist that are the ones who should be responsible for kind of making these types of decisions. And I think that we should trust the experts in that case to kind of make those choices. But more so than that, I'm particularly concerned because if you look at the wording of the cases that are being made, the results of these cases could have greater implications on trans rights across the board overall. So it's really an issue of the language that they're using to attack these trans athletes can then be weaponized to use to take away civil rights abroad, and that's the thing that's the most concerning to me.
I feel very confident that they will answer the question, can states protect women? I think that they will say yes. I think that could be a sweeping majority, even if that's what the opinion is limited to. Where it gets a little bit murky is if the opinion is expanded to include and answer the question, does Title IX require that sports are sex segregated? That I'm a little bit, not so sure about. I think the chances are not as great with that scenario, but I feel very confident that we will get a favorable decision.
Do you think the West Virginia case is a little trickier than the Idaho case?
I think that they both do such a good job of outlining biological reality and making sure that the Constitution is interpreted in a way that upholds the different categories of individuals. And so I'm very confident there will be the protections afforded to women, and I'm very excited to see this come to a close.
So if you were to be talking to, I know it's not necessarily a topic for like middle schoolers, but if you were to talk to like a 12-year-old, how would you describe, I guess like our average viewer, break down what the court is weighing today? Like what's the core legal issue?
The essential question that they're asked to answer is, can states within their constitutional bounds issue laws that protect women and girls? We know that women are different from men, right? Girls and boys are different. They can't change to become the opposite. And so the women are the more vulnerable class. The girls are the more vulnerable class. States are within their rights to protect the more vulnerable people that live in their states. And I'm very confident the court is going to decide in favor of that. Idaho and West Virginia have these common sense laws on the books that say boys can't compete in girls' sports. 27 states have similar laws. And so that's what's at stake today.
This issue of transgender athletes competing in sports has impacted you directly.
Yeah, so I raced against 2 biological males in high school. I lost 4 state championships, 2 All New England awards, and other countless podium medal opportunities. And it's just really heartbreaking to line up against biological male time after time and know that I didn't have a chance at winning.
Tell me how that felt. Like, what was going through your mind at the time? You had to have been very young.
Yeah, I was 14 the first time I raced against a biological male. And it just got progressively worse as I got older. You know, as I progressed in my time, so did those two athletes. And it was just so hard to put all this work in and to know that even as I started to shave off tenths of a second off of my time, that it was nowhere near what they were going to be running.
And what have you made of this legal issue? It's really grown over the past couple of years, especially from, you're one of the trailblazers where it started to what you see behind you today at the Supreme Court.
Yeah, I'm so happy that so many girls have spoken up in their own, have experienced this themselves and have decided to take a stand. It was really just me, Selena, and Alana doing this back in 2020. So to see it get to this point is really exciting, and I hope everything goes well today.
That had to have taken courage.
Yeah, it was really hard at first, but definitely seeing all the positivity has helped so much over the years.
Do you talk to younger female athletes today? And if so, what are those conversations like?
Yeah, there's so many new, younger female athletes that are joining this stand, and I'm so proud of them for doing that. It's such a hard thing to stand up against this issue, especially with all the negativity that's out there. But the more of us that come together to talk about this issue, the better it's going to be. The more of us that we can stand together, hopefully quicker the change can be made.
What do you say to critics who argue there really isn't that big of a difference and just let the transgender athletes participate?
Yeah, I mean, I did this for 4 years in high school, and the difference was huge. I mean, these athletes were beating us out by half a second in the 100 meters, which is a huge increment in time. And we just know the biological difference between men and women. That's why we have sex-separated sports in the first place. I mean, if we just let every man race against women, there would be no women's sports, and that's why we're out here today, fighting for that.
When you first started facing this, you first started racing and having those losses to biological males, what kind of support did you get from the people in power, from the coaches, from your school administrators? Tell me, walk back in time, and what was that, 2018, is that about the year? 2017, okay. So what was the climate like among leadership in 2017 regarding this?
It was so hush-hush. Nobody wanted to talk about this issue, even the administrators, coaches, everyone was kind of quietly giving their support, saying, oh, this is wrong, you shouldn't have to be doing this, but no one wanted to stand up and vocally say that. So it was really hard for us girls to kind of realize that we were going to have to be the ones to say something, and that the people in power weren't going to do it for us.
Is there anything else you want to add?
Just that we're out here, fighting for fairness for women.
Meeting in women's and girls sports impacted you personally?
So I was forced to compete against two biological males throughout all 4 years of high school in my home state of Connecticut in track and field. I competed against them in the short sprint events, and I raced against them dozens and dozens of times throughout the years. And I was never close to winning a single time. And after I lost out on qualifying for our regional New England meet in the 55-meter dash by 2 spots, with those top 2 spots being taken by the male athletes, I said enough is enough, and if the adults in the room don't want to do anything to protect us, then I need to be the one to stand up. So at just 15 years old in 2018, I started speaking out on this issue, asking for fairness to be restored to my sport.
So you were one of the first ones to speak out on this issue. What has it been like to watch it swell over the years into what we see out here today, all the way at the Supreme Court?
It's been incredible to see the amount of love and support that we've gotten from people across the country, and throughout the last few years there have been so many incredible girls that have since joined me in this fight, because in the beginning I was really the only one, that there was nobody else out there with me. I felt like I was tackling this alone, so I'm so thankful that there's so many incredible girls that have since stood up and decided to share their stories of competing against men and ensure that no one else has to go through this pain and heartbreak.
And you have your lawyer here with you. Can I get your first and last name and spell it again so we have that all on record?
Yes, it's Matt Sharp, M-A-T-T-S-H-A-R-P.
And you've represented her since almost the beginning.
That's right.
What do you make of how this legal issue has really transformed over the years?
Well, from the very beginning, it was courageous young women like Selena, Chelsea, and others in Connecticut speaking out. And it really launched a movement that led to where we're at today at the Supreme Court. It was her story that inspired the lawmakers in Idaho and West Virginia to pass the Save Women's Sports Law. We now have 27 states that passed it, and we're here at the Supreme Court encouraged that the Supreme Court's going to uphold those laws. And so all of that started because of the courageous stand that Selena and others like her stood to make this day possible. Now we want to go to the next step after this and get the victory for them in their case and the girls all across the country so that no woman ever loses out to an opportunity to a man.
How tricky do you see the legal battle right now before the court, especially regarding Title IX and the equal protection case as well?
We think this is a very simple case. Title IX and equal protection have always allowed states to recognize the differences between men and women. Those differences matter in places like sports, in locker rooms and restrooms. So all we're asking the court to do is recognize that when there are physiological differences between men and women, and those differences matter on the playing field or in the locker room, that states can protect the interest of women and not allow men into these spaces or on the playing field.
Why, you've experienced this firsthand, why do those biological differences matter? Because some people say there really is no difference, it really is like not that big of a deal. What do you say to those critics?
I say that science and common sense tells us the opposite, that there are great physical differences between men and women, and that leads to men performing at a much higher level than us. And sports are about biology, they're not about identity, so you need to compete in the category where it's most fair to everybody involved. And if you take a look at either track and field or swimming, or they're one-on-one, you can see that in every statistic, men outrank the women. There's no world record out there in track or swimming where the woman's mark is better than the men's mark. So that alone should tell you that there are great differences between us and that our sports need to be separated, and women competing against